Malaysia's Prime Minister is facing growing calls to resign after his biggest ally, UMNO, withdrew support for his government. But the Attorney General says there are no clear facts to indicate that Muhyiddin Yassin has in fact lost his majority. We go live to Melissa Go in just a moment. But first, a look at the latest twists and turns on the roller coaster ride that is Malaysian politics.
A flurry of activity inside the house of Malaysia's leader. Cabinet members and top officials have been spotted entering the premises. Among them, new Deputy Prime Minister Ismail Sabri. All this comes hours after UMNO's late-night bombshell. The country's largest party has withdrawn its support for Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin. UMNO's Supreme Council says Mr. Muhyiddin has failed to meet several conditions, including curbing the COVID-19 crisis. It wants the Prime Minister to immediately step down and make way for an interim leader.
Perdana Menteri baru mesti segera menasihati Yang di-Pertuan Agong bagi menyerahkan kembali mandat kepada rakyat untuk diadakan pilihan raya umum yang ke-15. Ini penting bagi membolehkan sebuah kerajaan yang benar-benar stabil dan memperolehi mandat majoriti rakyat diwujudkan.
Mr. Muhyiddin's government has been wrecked by instability for months and has a razor-thin majority in parliament. Elections are not due until 2023, but the embattled leader has said polls will be held as soon as it is safe to do so.
Melissa Go joins us live. Mel, the Attorney General says that Prime Minister Muhyiddin is still very much in charge.
Yes, despite the bombshell dropped by UMNO, President Ahmad Zahid Hamidi to quit Prime Minister Muhyiddin's Perikatan Nasional government immediately, which, theoretically speaking, should have rocked the government to its core, given that UMNO, the former ruling party, controls the largest bloc of MPs in his government, in total more than 35, including 9 ministers and 8 deputy ministers. And also, given the razor-thin majority of Prime Minister Muhyiddin in Parliament, his administration should be worried. But instead, it appears to be all peace and quiet at Prime Minister's office this morning. Mr. Muhyiddin, who was recently discharged from the hospital after he was treated for an infection in his digestive system, met newly appointed Ismail Sabri, the Deputy Prime Minister, who's also from UMNO, and his home in Bukit Damansara, and also the Attorney General, the government top lawyer, Idris Harun, who later issued a statement saying that there is no indication whatsoever that the Prime Minister has lost the majority in Parliament. Now, according to the Federal Constitution, he says the support for Prime Minister should be determined on the floor by the number of individual MPs and not based on any party or party leader's statements. So Mr. Muhyiddin is shrugging off the latest challenges from UMNO President Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, and that's because many observers I spoke with are saying that, none of the UMNO ministers nor MPs have openly supported the president's call for Mr. Muhyiddin to step down or make way for an interim prime minister. Instead, the focus today shifted to what apparently Mr. Zahid did not mention at all during the news conference, was that UMNO Supreme Council, the highest decision-making body, has decided to allow all its MPs to decide for themselves, when the time comes in Parliament, who to vote for, which is rather odd and rather confusing for many, even within UMNO. Indeed, Mr. Zahid, who is facing multiple corruption charges in court, his support within the party looks questionable, but the party election has been postponed, as we know, for 18 months due to the standoff, due to the pandemic. So it's a standoff right now, as far as the party is concerned. It's looking more split and more confused than before.
Right. Still, how will UMNO's withdrawal play out or affect the ruling coalition going forward?
It's a numbers game, ultimately, and the Parliament resumes on July 26th, so we have to wait for that to get more clarity. But as long as UMNO ministers and majority of MPs will stick with their support, their backing for Perikatan Nasional government, for Mr. Muhyiddin, till Parliament is dissolved to pave the way for the election, which is very unlikely anytime soon, given the record number of cases with daily infections now back to its peak with more than almost 9,000 cases reported today and 135 deaths reported today, which is the highest so far. Now, Prime Minister Muhyiddin's grip of power is still intact, analysts are telling me, but the opposition doesn't think so. They intend to challenge the government's decision and policies all the way, they said, when the parliament resumes on July 26, although it's only, for 5 days, they said. Now, former Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir has just spoken, insisted that, of moving a confidence motion, although he himself admitted that, it's unlikely to see the light of day because government business takes priority. But his ally from East Malaysia, Shafi Abdal, the president of Warisan I spoke with, insisted that Mr. Muhyiddin has lost a majority. Now, his government, he said, has failed to nurse the country back to health. And despite the emergency rule, the protracted lockdown, Mr. Muhyiddin has failed. Let's listen in.
I think the trust is no longer there. That's why the people are putting white flags, black flags. Why is that so? I mean, people's trust is no longer with the government of the day. On top of that, I think good governance is really essential for us to realize, to getting trust from the people at large.
Now, the opposition, of course, believes that they can do a better job. But, first they will have to get their act together. Analysts are saying that, as long as both opposition parliamentary chief Anwar Ibrahim and Dr. Mahathir, the former statesman, still unable to see each other eye to eye and get their act together, any effort seem to cancel out themselves, and Prime Minister Muhyiddin can still sleep soundly at night. Joe?
Melissa Go reporting live from Kuala Lumpur. Thank you.